energy is somehow, where the energy is somehow in a relative harmony. This is actually another author of outside the Heartfulness organization, but Michael Singer is writing about it in a brilliant way in his book called The Untethered Soul, where he's explaining the samskara as an energy spin in a relative harmony. So somehow it's impressions that we have accumulated in our energy bodies. It's from experiences that we experienced and we either didn't like it, so we didn't want to experience it again, or we liked it so much that we want to hold on to it because we want it to be something that we experience again and again. So those two things have the same thing in common, that we didn't allow the energy to go through us. In the moment we had an experience, we didn't allow the energy to pass through us. We wanted to hold on to it, or we didn't want to have it. And that was sort of making this energetic spin that is in a relative. Interesting that it's actually, that he explains this as relative harmony, because it also goes very well together with how we are neurologically wired in the brain, that we keep repeating the same patterns over and over again, because it actually feels it's a sort of comfort zone. We have these neural wirings and pathways in the brain. So it's a little bit like if I walk in the snow, there's lots of snow, it's hard for my legs. So then if there's a path where someone else walked in front of me, it's easier, then let me walk in that path. It's easier for my legs. It might not lead me to the destination that I would like to go, but it feels easier. So I keep walking there. That's a little bit the same, that we keep thinking the same thoughts because it's what we are used to thinking. And those thoughts, they sort of create some feelings in our body. Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about that the thoughts are the language of the brain or the mind, and the feelings is the language of the body. And those two, they have something going on together. I think in one of the other sessions we talked about becoming coherent in our thinking and feeling patterns. And we have to really become aware that we are actually, the body is actually addicted to having these feelings. So we keep thinking thoughts and having feelings that we are addicted to having and thinking, even though it's not really what we would like, but it feels comfortable. So when we really want to heal, let's say that instead of saying change, if we really want to heal, it has got to be okay that it's a little bit uncomfortable. We have to learn to become comfortable feeling uncomfortable, not for a long while, but for a short while. And that can be when we have to somehow dive into a shadow or dive into a limiting story that I keep telling myself. If I really want to go into what is the unmet feeling behind that I have this thought all the time or this idea, then I have to be able to go in and allow myself to feel a certain emotion for a certain amount of time. Actually, Dr. Joe Dispenza, again, he speaks about that it takes between 5 to 15 seconds. If you really sit with mindful awareness and feel the feeling or the emotion, it actually goes away in the brain after 15 seconds. So he talks about an entire civilization that is running around escaping from these 15 seconds of sitting and holding space for this emotion that we don't want to feel. I find that interesting. So now I would like that we go into doing a little exercise. This thing about narratives, that we tell ourselves some stories all the time. If we become more and more aware of what stories we tell ourselves, we can also become better in changing them. And I think I'm gonna start by being courageous and tell one of my limiting stories. So maybe it can become a little bit more clear that what it is I'm trying to, that I want you to do in the exercise. So one of my limiting narratives sounds like this, and I'm going to say it in present time. It's quite important that when we work with these things where we want to reframe a negative story into a positive story, it's quite important that we talk in present tense. I think it's called present time. Yeah. So I have one limiting belief that is called my emotions and feelings are always messing up things for me. Whenever things starts going well, my emotions mess up everything. Why can't I just be normal? That's a story that I have told myself a lot of times. And whenever I have told myself the story, I have told it because I can see that my circumstances have somehow unfolded again. A situation has occurred where I clash with someone because I'm not able to control my feelings and be normal. So of course, there's a lot of truth to that. We have to be able to control our feelings, but at the same time, I'm also living in a society and in a time of evolution where it is not very acceptable to have feelings and emotions, certainly not show them on a business meeting or whatever that I could have been doing. So this emotions and feelings that are always messing up things for me. Then if I try to change that into a positive framed narrative about myself, it sounds somewhat like this. My emotions and feelings are my superpowers because I know how to manage them. And I want to share this ability with others. And I want to support people on their journey into the intuitive age. The intuitive age is what I like to think of the future. The future is where we all feel more than we think. We all can go into a room and use our intuition and feel how the other person next to me feels. And then I can say, hi, Christine, you're feeling like this, I can feel. And then Christine can share it back. And that's perfectly fine. Nobody expects that we should not feel. That's the intuitive age. That's what I want to be a part of creating. So when I have sort of written this narrative, I have empowered myself with one of the biggest challenges in my life, which has been one of my biggest wounds coming from whatever that it came from in my life and in my other lives or whatever. That's not really interesting. What is interesting is to rewrite the story. And how did I do that? I did that by really firstly becoming aware that I have a story going on. That's the first step. To really listen to what stories do you actually tell yourself. I ask myself before going to bed sometimes, why am I always messing up on this certain area here? And then please tell me when I wake up in the morning, I want to hear that story. And it happens often. Then I wake up and I hear the story. Like, this is messing up because you're always doing like this. And then I ask behind, what is the unmet need behind this story? What is the unmet need? For me, it's always, when it comes to this emotions and feelings are messing up everything in my life story, the unmet need is always that I really just need to be in an environment where I'm okay as I am, where I can feel that I can be my authentic being with other people. And I actually have the right to walk away from any situation that is not offering that to me, because I know I can contribute best to the entire universe and to the whole when I'm allowed to be me. So once I found that unmet need, I could give myself this mindful compassion, yeah, but also like this acceptance of who I am and an ability to really sit with myself, like I would do with my daughter or my son. If they came home and said something like that, I would sit with them and say, like, I like you when you're like this. So I would like to invite you all, I hope this makes sense to you. I would like you to invite you all to close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. And then this is such a wonderful community that I'm sure that not many of you, you don't have so many shadows, but let's try it anyway. Sometimes I do this with young entrepreneurs who never worked with themselves, and they have a lot of inner narratives. Let's see if we can find some here. Then ask yourself, what kind of narrative? Is there some narrative? Let it pop up, the one that come up. An inner narrative that you keep telling yourself, which is a limiting narrative. I don't want to call it negative, even though it's the one that doesn't feel so right, but a limiting. One where you're telling yourself that you're not good enough as you are. Whatever pops up, the first one is normally the one that wants to be heard. And try to remember that. And then if someone is courageous, I would like to hear it, maybe from one or two persons. Anyone? We have 61 people on the call.
I could, my name is Peggy, and I
Hi,
thank you. Thank you so much. Well, mine pops up, it just kind of sits with me all the time. And it's that I have children that aren't well. So I'd say to myself, I have not been good enough as a mother.
Wow.
It's very painful, a very painful.
Okay, so if you say I have not been good enough as a mother, then you have to ask yourself, then if we follow this way, like, what is the unmet need? What is it that you need in that moment? Or what did you need in the past that were not fulfilled?
Wow. I suppose the ability to be a good mother.
So you need, that's still another limiting narrative, because we can say you needed to feel that someone, probably your kids, thought that you were a good mother. You needed to feel accepted as who you are in your motherhood.
Yes.
Can we say that?
That I need to feel
that you need, the unmet need could be that you needed to feel accepted as a good enough mother. And you need to feel that you were maybe accepted, that you did as good as you could.
Right.
Because
I'm the only one that I know that thinks I'm not a good mother.
All righty. I'm sure you were a very wonderful mother. And you know, most mothers, they think that they're not good enough. So I'm pretty sure that you were, but that doesn't change the narrative, because you can keep co-creating with that narrative if it came up. And I'm very, thank you so much for sharing. It's not an easy thing to share one of these things in public. It's really courageous. So if there's this sort of unmet need to be accepted as a good enough mother, then I invite you to, and everyone else here on the call with your own limiting stories, then try to close your eyes, Peggy, and then make a firm decision that you want to give yourself that very thing that you were not getting for some reason.
Wow.
And then when you really allow that feeling in consciousness to arrive, that acceptance that I did as good as I can or could, then it's kind of what we can rewrite the story. Then it's up to you. I'm not supposed to rewrite your story, but then you can start in a positive framed way to rewrite your story, that I'm a mother who did, it could be somewhat like that. I'm a mother who really did my very best. Right?
Right. I want to add one thing. It's very painful to say that because they're very sick. Is that the best I could do? Was not help them be healthy. But I understand. I have work to do.
Yeah, then again, you might not have work to do. You might have Healing.
Healing.
That's why, because when we go, as I said, shifting out of the performer mindset, because work, oh God, we have more work to do. I mean, didn't we work enough for the last 2000 years? And look where the world is. Look where humanity is.
Right.
I don't think you have, I mean, you look like someone who did a lot of work in your life, you know? So
right.
I think you have a lot of compassion to do with yourself. Compassion is also allowing yourself to go into that space where you are already good enough, where you're already a good mother, because this divine love is already in you. When you go into that space of really resting in that you're good enough, and then asking, what do you truly need? And trust me, if you do this over the next 3 months, you'll see change also in your children. Right? So whatever. So once Kamlesh or Daji, he told me directly, whatever you do, the universe changes with you. You know? So if we do one thing, and that doing is also a thought, one thought affects the entire universe. So trust me, as a mother, it affects your children if you start giving yourself compassion. Good luck.
Thanks,
There's one more. I would like to have one more to share, a limiting story.
Good morning. My name is Katie Evans. I think I always suffer with like test anxiety. And so I've taken my counselor licensure like 3 times. And now I really want to take it again. And I find myself just depressed about it because it's hard to get through the system to prepare me to take the test. That makes sense.
So it makes sense. So how does this limiting, I'm trying to look for one sentence. What would it sound like? Sound like a limiting belief?
Maybe.
Like a limiting story. It's like you want to do, I didn't quite catch it. You want to do some exam, is it that?
Yes, I want to take my licensure exam to be a clinical mental health counselor. And for some reason, I'm having the hardest time. I took the test 3 times and didn't do well. And so I'm trying to reach out to the college or university where I graduated from to have a refresher course so that I can prepare to take the exam again. I think it's my passion, and I really worked hard to earn my master's degree, but it's eliminating me from getting the job that I really want to do.
And so what is this? Why is it that you don't take it?
Because I'm reaching out to the college where I graduated from, because in order for me to take the test again, I must be prepared, number one, and I must be able to take the exam. So I need a refresher course and a preparation so that I can be eligible to take the exam.
So are you telling yourself in your limiting story, which I'm kind of looking for, is it that you're telling yourself that you're not able to take this exam? So that could be the limiting narrative. I'm not able to do this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then if you then, can you try to say it like, I'm not able to do this exam, or with your words, I would like to hear it.
I am not able to take the exam, and I struggle with that.
Okay. I'm not able to take the exam. I struggle with that. So that's a limiting narrative, because obviously you are able to take an exam if you want to, but now we're going to try to go behind. What is this feeling behind? Can you feel some sort of feelings behind why you feel that you're not? Is it because you're not feeling good enough, or you're not feeling hardworking enough, or like, what are the feelings behind?
I guess anxiety, nervous, fear, which I know I shouldn't be afraid of anything.
So fear of what?
Fear of failing.
Fear of what?
Failing.
So fear of failure. All right. That's a good one. We all have that fear of failure, you know? I was just on a call yesterday with a really big coach who was saying, like, just get over it, go and get humiliated. because we have to get humiliated kind of all the time. So fear of not being good enough. So then what I invite you to do now, what was your name? Katie?
Yes.
So what I invite you to do, and everyone else on the call with their limiting stories, is that you close your eyes and you try to really ask yourself, what is behind this fear of failing? What is this feeling? What would happen if I fail? People would see finally that I'm not good enough. And then you do what you would do with your child or your best friend. And you start speaking to yourself like you would to your best friend. That you are good enough. You start telling yourself that,
Thank you.
Bless you.
bless you. You start
Sorry.
telling yourself that you are good enough. I lost your picture, but I can still feel you.
I'm here.
There you are. So, Katie, then you can start. See, that's wonderful when we start crying. That's the energy release. Chariji, who was this spiritual teacher that I was so fortunate to spend 10 years with in India, he always said to me that the moment the tears are coming, that's when the real release and the change is happening. And that's why we also have to walk into this new intuitive age and sharing these feelings, not in such a, like, doesn't have to be some sort of emotional drama going all crazy. We don't want that, but to be together and shifting from thinking to feeling. How can we do that if we don't cry? Right? And then you're going to start writing on that empowering narrative where you, instead of telling, of course I can do this exam, of course I can do this exam, you have now sort of gone a bit deeper. You realize that you actually feel that you're afraid of failing and not good enough. So then that's where you have to start watering the plant. That I'm good enough as I am already behind all these stories. Thank you very much for sharing. I appreciate it very much, Katie, and I'm sure that you will do well.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I think, let me just see the time. I think we don't have time for one more, unless is anyone sitting and oh my God, they would have liked to share, then please come forward. Nope.
I can say something.
Hi, Christine. Wonderful.
Of course, my daughter's on here. She's laughing like, there's my mother.
Hi, Kelly. I know your daughter. Please share, Christine.
Well, I would just like to say there are a lot of new people on here that aren't practicing heartfulness.
Wonderful.
There's some language here that you're using, like doing your cleaning at night, and which is all part of the heartfulness practice that's hosting the seminar for the month.
Mm-hmm.
But I would just like to say what you just shared with Katie. I have found in the last year, when I ask myself what's behind this feeling, that it's so powerful to be in relationship with that pure self behind you, what you originally referenced as that perfect original self. Because I think what we forget is the original perfect self is rooting for us more than anybody or any other relationship in the world. So, it may not, in a roundabout way, I think the cleaning process that is connected to the heartfulness practice, that's what it's leading to, is to get enough of this false narrative off us so we can be in relationship with this pure original self that is rooting for us all the way. So that's all I wanted to say, because I know there are some people on here that stay on our newsletter for seekers, but aren't actually practicing the heartfulness meditation. So I just wanted to say that I'm starting to put it together for myself, that what you're describing is a way to be in relationship with our heart.
Yes. Thank you so much for just saying this. Yeah, I did use some sort of maybe a little bit some frames or about cleaning, and that's all. They should all contact you guys, you, Christine, to maybe get in more into understanding what that all means. Cleaning is just a way to purify the energy around in the energy bodies. Thank you for saying that, Christine. And I think now we should maybe meditate, because it's 6:07 here, so the time is running a bit. See, that's when we start doing this kind of deep transformational work. Time just disappears, and I think it's just also beautiful to share in a group. It's very new for many of us to share in groups these kind of things that we normally do at home, you know. And I think it's so beautiful when we can become better and better at that, because we really all are the same. We tell ourselves all these crazy stories about what we cannot do and can't do, and what we didn't do right, and really this inner nature. So back to the topic about being sustainable and contributing to a sustainable world by being conscious creators, is really surrendering to that we are nature. And when nature wants to express herself through us, it's like always coming out in the right way. So what Christine was saying about this inner heart connection, where nature is just present and rooting us and grounding us, then everything will be fine when we allow that part of us to express itself through us. So when that's said, I think we should meditate. And then next time we're going to go a little bit more into this, how we can actually become more able to surrender to all these narratives and go behind them and really not believe them in any way, not even believe, really not let them run our lives, not even the ones that are positive framed, negative, positive, all that, how we can really get behind and witness everything that takes place when it's expressing itself through us. That's going to be next time. So then let me invite you all to close your eyes.